Hi everyone, I hope you're having a fantastic Christmas day, eating lots, drinking lots, and having a wonderful time with your family. Now, we've had a pretty interesting year, and I wanted to take the opportunity to kind of look back on it, see how it's gone for us, but also I have a lot of thank yous to do for people who have made this year possible. So I know things have been pretty quiet on the YouTube channel. As I've said before, with the park open, we're pretty busy and it's kind of hard to find time to make videos. We did put one out a couple of weeks ago on the build of the Continental line. Unfortunately, because we're not putting out content regularly, YouTube likes to punish us. So views on that didn't go particularly well, but it is a good video. So if you haven't seen it, it is worth checking out. So let's start by looking back at 2024 and see what the highs and lows were. So it is pretty amazing to think back to how far we've come this year. It was just after New Year that James and I sort of sat down and we had a chat, and we were kind of very bored of not having done anything for a year. You know, everything felt like it was stagnating, and we really felt that we needed to make some progress this year if we were ever going to bring the bike park back. So we started talking about what we could do, and the original plan was that in the summer this year we would do some events that would allow us to generate a bit of revenue to help rebuild the park, but it would also sort of bring a bit of life back into the place and just sort of keep it on everyone's radar. So we started to look out for opportunities, and obviously we spoke with Farmer John and Mike from Borderline Events about bringing the Stockport World Series to the park. We also had some conversations with Malk from Gravity Events about bringing the mini downhill series here. And obviously we'd been keeping in touch with the 50-to-1 boys, and we'd always dreamed of bringing an event with them to the park, and that's what led to the 50-to-1 sunset session. So at the time we felt that that would be sufficient, you know, that would keep the ball rolling whilst we waited for the forest to kind of bed in and start maturing. So when we started to look at the work required in the park to get those events off the ground, we realised that actually we'd be in a pretty good state to let people come and ride. So we thought, well, why not just open the doors, do it as a push-up. If people want to come and ride it, awesome. If they don't, no great loss. And that's kind of what birthed the idea of our Summer of Riding. Now, as it turned out, the Summer of Riding was more successful than we could have possibly hoped for. I think it was really well received. We had so many people come here. It was great to see sort of, you know, old faces come back to the park, but also so many new riders come and experience the park that we're so glad we did it. Obviously, we learned some lessons as we went along. You know, the hill is pushable, as any hill is. However, it is quite a brutal push. So I think the introduction of the sort of pay-as-you-go uplift during the summer was certainly a good idea and really worked out well for people. All the events we held over the summer were really great. I think they were really well received. People seemed to have a great time at them. And although the summer weather wasn't necessarily the best, it was relatively kind to us and allowed us to run fairly uninterrupted without concern of things like strong winds and stuff like that. Now, we always planned that the summer was going to be a kind of set period of time that would come to an end in September, but you know, we kind of suspected that that wouldn't be the end of the story for this year. However, with how successful it was and how much support you guys gave us, it seemed obvious to carry on. So we then moved into our sort of normal but much smaller scale uplift operation. I think throughout the winter it's worked really well, and we've also seen a surprising number of people still turning up for push-ups, and and that all helps to sort of contribute towards the rebuild of the park. Now, almost every day we get asked about, are we going to ramp back up to the scale we were before? But as we've talked about in these videos, we have some concerns about the site, particularly in regards to the weather and the wind and how consistently we can run. Now, the summer and the autumn were pretty kind to us, but as we came towards the end of November and certainly into December, we've kind of had a bit of a rough time with the weather. Now, we've actually lost 3 out of the last 5 weekends, which is pretty bad for this time of year, particularly given that winter is officially only just started. Now, obviously, we're hoping that, January, February, March will be a little kinder to us, but, you never know. Now, whilst it's been pretty bad, particularly for those who rely on this place for work, including myself and James, the smaller scale means that we haven't been taking the sort of heavy hits that we would have in our previous operation. It's also been a really big learning experience for us to understand, what winds are a problem, how the hill responds to different weather patterns, so we didn't want to do that whilst trying to handle sort of 20 odd staff and 130 riders a day. So whilst the last month has been pretty depressing, not just for us, but for the entire mountain bike industry, we are still here, we're still stable, and ultimately right now that's the aim. So ultimately, whilst 2024 has been filled with some highs and lows, if I think back to where I was at the end of 2023, I couldn't in my wildest dreams believe that it would have gone this successfully, and for that I have some people I need to thank. So in no particular order, let's get into it. First, I want to say a big thank you to Scott. Now, some of you have been to the park might have met Scott. He's been driving for us recently. Now, Scott reached out to us very early on in the year and basically said, can I come and help rebuild the park? Now, at the time, whilst we were very grateful for that, we couldn't afford to pay anyone to do that, and he potentially said, I don't want to be paid, I just want to get involved, I want to do some digging, I want to come up there and help get the park back on our feet. And we were just sort of blown away with that generosity. So Scott came up earlier this year and started doing some work with us, and then as we went into the summer and as we started to sort of generate some income, we were able to sort of start paying him so that he could actually stay on and help us all throughout the year. So I can't tell you how grateful we are to Scott. As I say, if he hadn't been here, we certainly wouldn't have got all of the tracks we have open. So yeah, big thank you to Scott, and thanks so much for working with us. Also big thanks to Lee, our mechanic, who helped to sort of pull the Land Rovers out of retirement, get them back up and running, and is also doing sort of ongoing maintenance, so we're able to offer the uplift now. I also want to say a big thank you to Susha. Now Susha does all of the sort of booking stuff, she does the admin, the finance. You know, whilst it might not be exciting and sexy work, without it this business wouldn't function, and so big thank you to Susha for sticking with us and helping us through all of these difficult times. A big thank you to Merv, Myra, Ian, John, and the rest of the staff that have come back to help us this year. Big thank you to our mother and the rest of our family who have supported us both emotionally and financially through this time, and I say without their support we certainly wouldn't have been able to get back on our feet. Big thank you to Helen from Hell's Kitchen, who has been providing us with all of our catering this year. You know, she makes some amazing food and she's always just on hand to help us out and make sure everything runs smoothly for us. Big thank you to Marzina, Chris, and all the other people who have been helping out with our planning issues for our longer term plans. A huge thank you to all of the people of Clangunnog for supporting us and putting up with our various shenanigans this year. You know, having the backdrop of this supportive community means so much to us, and we're so grateful for that. A huge thank you to Jo from Life in Raw for making all of our videos for us, but she's also my partner, so she's kept me sane throughout all of this. Huge thank you to Continental, Smiling Chain Link, and the other brands that have supported the park this year. Without that support, we wouldn't be where we are now. And last but by no means least, let me say a big thank you to you for watching these videos, for supporting us, to the riders who have come back to the park. You know, without you, it goes without saying, none of this would be worthwhile. So I think that sort of covers all the huge amount of people that we owe our success this year to. And again, so thank you to you all, and I hope very much you'll stick with us for 2025. So that neatly brings me on to what are the plans for next year. So essentially the plan for 2025 is more of the same. The operation we've been running through the winter this year will continue essentially indefinitely. We may up capacity as we get into the summer, you know, particularly around the school holidays and things like that. But as I say, things are working pretty well right now, so we're going to keep things as they are for now. The rebuild will continue. You know, we've done really well in 2024 and got most of the tracks back and running, but there's still a few notable exceptions. The midsection of the free ride is still sort of destroyed, and whilst the plan is to essentially route the free ride through the Continental line, that still is a great bit of hill for us to build something new on. The lower section of the main line, which was our original downhill track, is all but completely destroyed, and there is plans to probably in the spring get down there and rebuild that. And there's certainly other plans that we'll be working up, and you know, essentially the building of trails I don't think will ever stop at Revolution Bike Park. As you may have noticed throughout this whole video, we've actually partnered with Smiling Chain Link, a shop from Leeds. Now they're providing lots of stock for the shop, mainly centered around stuff you need to keep your riding day going if something breaks. We'll be continuing to work with them and develop our relationship with them, but yeah, really grateful for the support they've given to the park. We have quite a lot of events planned for this summer, but unfortunately I'm going to have to do that annoying thing where I tease you with it, but I'm not really going to be able to give you much detail because most of them are still embargoed. You can expect a number of races at various different levels of racing, shall we say, but also following on from the success of the 50 to 1 Sunset sessions last year, we have some plans for some things around those kind of ideas, which I think you're going to be really interested in, so make sure to keep following along on our social media. So yeah, 2025 is set to be a pretty exciting year. We still have a couple of days left for 2024. We are open on the 28th and 29th, which is the weekend after Christmas, at which point we'll be shutting down for a couple of weeks just so we can kind of take a bit of a break, but we'll be reopening on the 17th of January, and at that point we'll be running Friday, Saturday, Sunday every week, weather permitting, of course. So that's going to about do it for me. Thanks so much for stopping by. I hope you have a great Christmas, and I hope we're going to see you in 2025. Remember to sort of like and subscribe, because although we're pretty quiet on the channel right now, it doesn't mean we're not going to be still producing videos when we have interesting stuff to do. So thanks again, and we'll see you in the new year.